This is Tech Beyond the Hype, the podcast where we talk to experts and leaders about the latest tech and business trends to figure out what's shaping the future of work.
Welcome back to the show. In this episode, I'm speaking to Scott Voigt, CEO of FullStory, about how companies can actually understand their users, not just what they do on their websites, but what they need, what frustrates them, and what keeps them coming back. Scott explains how real-time behavioural data is helping digital teams avoid having to guess at what's happening on their websites and create experiences that truly work. For IT leaders and tech pros alike, this episode is going to spark some new ideas on how to use your data to build smarter, more user-centred digital experiences that keep your customers coming back for more. Enjoy!
My name is Scott Voigt. I'm one of the founders and the CEO of a company called FullStory. I've been around technology for a long time in business-to-business SaaS, but most recently over the past 10 years, I've been with FullStory, where we've really been focused on perfecting digital experience for digital companies through collecting and activating what we would call behavioral data.
Right. So imagine I'm an audience member who has no idea what you're talking about when you say behavioral data. What does that really mean?
Well, we are all consumers of the internet, and whether that's on a mobile device or punching through on your desktop browser, imagine you go to shop somewhere. And when you hit that site, you are navigating through a journey, trying to learn about something or maybe research whether there's something you want to buy or even just buy something. As you do that, as you navigate through, there is a rich footprint of your intent, your hopes, your dreams through that journey that you're on. Now, the companies that own those sites or apps, they're interested in understanding your behavior on that site. In the past, when part of the reason we founded FullStory was their ability to get at that behavioral data was really, really difficult. There was a technical paradigm of collecting data called manual event instrumentation, which basically meant if I was a product manager at a big e-commerce site, for example, I had to have a hypothesis about what was important in that customer's journey. You know, clicking on the add to cart button, changing the size, putting in credit card, hitting confirm. Those were key moments that I thought were important. But to get that data, I had to go convince an engineer to write code around each one of those moments in the journey in order to collect the data, in order to get some charts and graphs. What's happened recently is there's just been a rethinking about that approach of gathering the data, where now through some technology in a very private, friendly way, you can gather all of that data by default. So you get not just the key moments that you thought were important. Side note, you usually were wrong on what you thought was important. It's an expensive process, had been to gather that data, and it was pretty incomplete. You only knew about the clicks that you collected. Behavioral data and the concept of that is really about getting everything. You can get your mouse movements. You can get your pinches and zoom. You can understand whether people read with their mouse, whether they were highlighting text. And through all of that data, you can start to make some good decisions about how to serve your customers better.
Right, that's super interesting. So what I'm getting is previously, businesses would guess at what the key moments are in a customer's journey. So these are the clicks that matter, so we're going to be recording those.
Yes.
Now you have a much more holistic perspective of the whole journey, the whole time that someone's on a website. What are they doing? What are they looking at?
That's exactly right. And if you want to think about it, it's not even metaphorical. There are paradigms where you can hit play as a site owner in an anonymous, private, friendly way, actually see what it looks like as the user is navigating through that journey. That's really just a reconstruction of the data of that journey, not like a video. And so that's all data that can be measured and it can be learned upon. And it's not necessarily with that website. It can be, I started a process on the website. I then got out my device and finished the process. So you really understand how your users are navigating whatever it is you're trying to do. I think it's important to just call out really quickly here. The way behavioral data works is it is first party data. So this isn't like dark arts on the web where people are tracking you from site to site to site and then compiling who you are. This is really a mechanism where if I am an e-commerce company, for example, I can understand my relationship with you, Anna, because I already have that relationship with you, or I can choose to just keep that anonymous in a way.
That makes sense. So you're offering a better perspective of what the customer really cares about.
Early on, we owned a trademark for this concept we call a rage click. And I guarantee you've done this. If you've navigated around the web before, you tried to put something in a cart and you clicked it and it didn't do what you wanted it to. So you clicked it again and you clicked it again, and then you just hammer on those. That's an example of a behavioral data signal that you can start to listen out for, measure it, quantify it. It's spiked up. What was the impact and revenue when that spiked up? Go and fix it really quick so you can get the revenue flowing again.
Right. I'm definitely being someone who's raged into the floor. I like the terminology as well.
There are all sorts of mouse thrashing, rage clicking. At some point we'll get phone throwing maybe as a heuristic that we can pay attention to.
I love it. What's the most surprising thing that you've learned through those different interactions, like the thrashing and the rage clicks that you mentioned?
I mean, honestly, it is just how pervasive it is and how absolutely blind most companies are to understanding what their visitors' experience actually is. And so as I think about the journey that we've seen in this space, it really started by just letting people know that there was a better way, that you could collect this data and you could do it in a private, friendly way. And that was a moment. We're in this interesting phase right now where companies understand that it's there, they're using it, but the people problem within the organization, by people problem, I really mean there are only so many analysts within a company that can think about that rich set of data in order to take advantage of it. And, surprise, surprise, when you have that data and AI and machine learning start to come into focus, you can eliminate a bit of that people bottleneck within the digital product management organizations. And so right now we're in this really interesting moment where people are saying, I don't want to just come into a SaaS tool and build charts and graphs to understand. I actually want to get all of this behavioral data. And I want to put this behavioral data in my data warehouse, and I want to marry it with all of my other data so I can now get this rich, complete profile of what my customers are doing.
And then so is that data profile that you're building, just to make sure I'm understanding fully what you're talking about. A business is then taking that profile data to identify where their issues are on their website and what things need to be solved, or are there other things that they're doing with that data as well?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with moving the hurdles out of the way of your users. What's broken and fix, and having a really rich set of tools that can constantly monitor for things like rage clicks and errors and all those sorts of things. And then forensic analysis tools to go in and find and fix it. The moment we're in right now is starting to make a much more informed, much more personalized experience for a visitor. So again, I'll give you an example where it's Friday night and you're looking to purchase a pizza from your favorite pizza shop. You go to that site, you head immediately to, prior orders. Now just think about that, land in immediately moving to prior orders. That behavioral data is saying with high intent, you are going to purchase in that visit. And so you can activate that behavioral data to say, well, we know Anna's going to buy. Let us do a cross promotion, a really aggressive cross promotion that we would only give you because you're such a good customer to us for something we think you're going to like and you're going to buy every time thereafter, right? They like to say the most profitable phrase in food service business is, would you like fries with that? But you don't have to offer that aggressive offer to everyone because it'd be really expensive if you offered it to everyone. We only want to give it to our best. Now, the flip side of that is it's Friday night. You're not sure what you want. You're thinking you might want pizza. You go to the site and you're navigating slowly through and you're kind of hesitating. You're hovering over the sale. Your signals are very hesitant. Well, the personalized experience we want to give you is a really good discount that will get you across the line. Again, you don't want to offer that to everyone. You certainly don't want to offer it if we know with high intent that you're going to do it. This is giving money away. And so you can both train on prior visits to learn that behavioral data pattern. And then when an anonymous person comes in and immediately goes to the upright, you know what to do and how to offer it. So this training data is really starting to take shape.
That's awesome. I'm imagining a lot of it. And you have mentioned already about artificial intelligence. And that must have just completely changed the game when it comes to behavioral data.
I would tell you it's still changing the game. We have some customers that are just very on the forefront of thinking about how behavioral data can change everything. And so we're working with those that are on the forefront of it, getting that data into their warehouse. They're building models. They're doing all of these different things. They're detecting fraud in ways they never have. I mean, things we never really imagined you could do with the product, but it's in that data set. What also is pretty interesting right now, I mean, this is very real time as of the recording of this podcast, is about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, Anthropic, the big AI company, announced what they're calling computer use, which is a tool that will go in and you just use your chat interface to say, hey, will you file this expense report for me? And it's learning how to open up your, photos, look for anything that was a receipt with an expense amount on it, open, start to copy and paste and move those things over. There's a leaked article this morning talking about Project Jarvis, where Google is looking to do the same thing. And so you can almost imagine a future world, and I don't have this all figured out, where you and I are going to Google and we're saying, just get us the best plane fare that you can. And then Google's machines are going onto the site and navigating those visits with mice and clicking through with no human in the loop. Now, in order to do that, there's going to be a lot of training on behavioral data, and in order to learn how to use a mouse and how to navigate a site, how to navigate it when it's big and it's small and all of these things. And so I just feel like every week there is some new announcement that lives at the intersection of behavioral data and AI, and it's hard to keep up with it right now.
Yeah, it sounds crazy. I mean, I can only imagine with so much news coming out about AI all the time, it's so relevant to what you're doing.
Yeah, it is so relevant. And I've got this, I hate to call it legacy, I got this wonderful business that is arming product teams with building charts and graphs and understanding and doing forensics. And then there's this new world that's at our doorstep. And how do you balance between the two of those things? Just don't sleep anymore, I think is the answer.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I can't imagine, but I get what you're saying. So taking a couple of steps back, the holidays are coming. And, there's Black Friday sales that will be coming out. A lot of companies preparing to get an influx of traffic. What data points should companies be looking at during that time to make sure that they're making the most of that traffic?
Yeah, it's a great call out. We actually published a benchmark report last year on the key KPIs that people want to be taking away. And surprise, surprise, what we've seen people doing is moving a little bit away from the traditional how many people put something in their cart and how many people checked out, visits to outcomes. That's still there for sure. But they're starting to supplement that with precursor behavioral data signals. How many people are frustrated as they hit the site, where you can start to create composite metrics of frustration. Again, rage clicks, mouse thrashing, how long it takes them to get something into the cart, how quickly your page is responding. And so staying on the forefront of those frustration metrics will help you. At the same time, we're starting to see vendors that are trying to do much more dynamic planning around merchandise, pricing, those sorts of things, where if you can get intent signals very early, it's Cyber Monday and you've opened up this new set of campaigns, how quickly, before people are even getting all the way to the checkout process, are people interested in this versus that? You can validate hypothesis very, very quickly through behavioral data just by starting to get intent signals out of it. I'm going to be watching. Honestly, I'm kind of curious. I believe that we have a way to monitor not just bot traffic. We've always been able to keep an eye on bot traffic. I think we're going to try to keep an eye on AI traffic to see if you see something that's a bit less synthetic, bot traffic has a very distinct pattern where it's click, click, click very quickly through a site. Are you going to be able to see a bot, which is an AI, trying to figure out how to do things in the site? I think this is going to be the year for that. And so we're going to try to keep an eye on that.
But that's a lot to be thinking about, I guess. And as you were talking, I was thinking with what you were saying about the new AIs, I was imagining a situation where you have a customer who says to the AI, find me the best price for this gift that I want to give someone. From a behavioral data standpoint, what does that mean? Are you worried about the future of your company at the moment? Because I feel like from what you're saying, there's a real threat, right?
Look, I worry about everything all the time. I think I do come back to sort of, there's a hype cycle around things, there's a reality around things. And I do think that we are in a cycle where AI is real. I'm not discounting that. I don't know where we are in the hype cycle of how soon it is going to get rid of everything else in the world. My sense is that people will continue to want to explore within the realm of, let's stick to just shopping, for example. People like to peruse. They like to shop. They like to kind of go to the source and see what those shoes look like there. And I think AI absolutely removing that process, maybe, but I don't think we're quite there yet. I do think there's going to be an interesting moment where brands are going to have to think about playing defense against that. I don't know what the sci-fi book of that looks like, but you're watching the AI hit your site. Are you trying to change the experience for the AI to kind of throw them off? I don't know whether brands are going to want to embrace or fight the power there. There's always been that cat and mouse game in travel and all sorts of spaces. So I think we're going to just watch closely.
Sure, that's super interesting. So going back a second, I agree with you. There's a lot of chat and it's easy to get caught up in the hype of AI and the idea is that people will be going online and saying, do the shopping for me. It does feel unrealistic.
I don't know yet. I mean, I really don't know yet. It depends. I mean, and I assume you use both Claude and GPT more than you ever have in your past. And I continue to be just gobsmacked by how good it is at some things and how it's okay at other things, right? I think that stuff gets better over time. I really believe it's going to come down to the experiences that us as visitors and users of software are going to want. I still tend to come back to believe that people like to engage with brands in some regards. They like to engage with brands when brands give great experiences. And so if you're a brand and you don't give a good experience, you might as well just open up an API for the AIs and just compete on price. If you do give a great experience, all the more reason to care about behavioral data, because if you're giving suboptimal experiences, your business starts to be at risk, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess there's a real human element to what is going to survive moving forward and what is going to be, or not survive, but what companies are managing to not have to compete on price.
I mean, I do think that survive is a good way to think about it. Let's turn it a little bit. Let's think about behavioral data within, say, an employee setting, right? I was on the phone recently with a telecom company for a long, long time as I tried to configure something in my account. I think I circled the world 3 times in call centers as I was furiously. It was a suboptimal experience. That's putting it politely. Most of the conversations that I had were simply me trying to describe what I wanted to be able to do online to my account to a person on the other side of the world on the phone. It was just transcribing that into their system. And then their system was telling them whether that could be done or not. That does not seem long for this world in this AI. Now, if you're somebody that's thinking about how do I build a better experience in a more efficient call center type environment, you have to understand everything about the behavioral data of me as a customer calling in. What was I trying to do online ahead of time that I failed at? So that gets handed into the call center agent that says, Mr. Voigt, were you trying to change the address on your account? Okay, you were, and you weren't able to do that online. Let me tell you why that was. The next step of that is getting rid of the human in the middle that's saying that, because The AI chatbots on the other side, there's going to be a prompt that comes in and it says, tried to change address and failed at changing address. And the AI bot says, probably failed because here are the 3 reasons. Let's go back and see if I can go ahead and fix that for them. That's a great digital experience. And I think that that is going to be the norm fast.
And when it comes to kind of using behavioral data in digital transformation to create the best experiences, I had a look at the research report that you mentioned earlier. And one of the case studies was Boohoo and their transformation. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the Boohoo folks, so great to work with. They really are on the frontier also, taking that behavioral data, not just to understand the visit experience that they have, but really to understand engagement with different aspects of their product, get that back into their warehouse, build better models, thinking about what should we order down the road as an example of how they're bringing in behavioral data. The other thing that they really cared about was just the real timeliness of being able to get that behavioral data in order to make quick adjustments of the site to get people deeper into the funnel faster.
That's an application that I hadn't really thought about, but it makes a lot of sense to these online fashion brands that are constantly changing their products.
Fast fashion is fast. I don't know that Boohoo would call themselves fast fashion, but the concept of styles are changing quickly in this TikTok world where all of a sudden purple is cool. I don't use TikTok, so I don't know that purple is cool. You can imagine all of a sudden your behavioral data is seeing people head to purple quicker. They may not be checking out with it, but if all of a sudden people are choosing things that are purple, I think it might be difficult for a human to have the hypothesis to pay attention to purple. I think that the machines and the regressions will be able to just comb through and see, oh, there's a new pattern that we didn't identify ahead of time. Purple seems to be trending. Let's go ahead and change our inventory in the next cycle to pull purple forward.
Right. And with Boohoo, but also just more generally, companies that use behavioral data through digital transformation. Imagine you're talking to an audience member who's looking to transform their website and make their user experience much better. They're going from a situation where their user experience is mediocre. What advice would you give them? What should they be looking out for?
Well, it starts with just let's fix the easy things. And almost certainly when we come into a new customer that hasn't had access to behavioral data or insights associated with it, you sort of flip it on. And the way that our product and others in the category sort of work is the products, they take all of the data and they start combing through it. So you set up a funnel that you think is an important funnel, and then the products will start to come through using machine learning and look and say, did you know that on the 3rd step of the 4th page, people are getting confused, as evidenced by something we would call something called a dead click, where you click on the page and the page doesn't change. It usually is a signal for some sort of intent that the page isn't doing. And then it'll quantify it. How many people that experienced this dead click didn't get all the way through? Oh my gosh, this is costing you $300,000 a month. Go fix that first. And it's just a punch list of things that you know that you need to do and then knock down the punch list. And I think those are all in the just don't make it an awful experience. I think that next step is, okay, let's start having a conversation with your data teams and let's expose to them the data in a couple of ways. There's, I'm going to say slow data, but let's get this huge corpus of behavioral data into your warehouse so you can marry it with other things and your data scientists can start to answer problems that they haven't been able to before because they now have more variables to throw at a problem. Then there's this idea of fast data. And I think we're coming out of the world where there is A/B testing. A/B testing feels sort of imperfect compared to something where you're really talking about a more personalized experience, where personalized means you can run A, B, C, D, E, F, G, lots of them. The machines can continue to count to see which one of those things aren't working. You get to start to pull that thesis closer to the design stack. So as you're building these different experiences, you're building them for more micro targeted users as opposed to macro. The coupon examples that we talked about, I think, are starting to scratch at that, but I think there's a lot more room to run if we can understand that I'm an old bald man and you're a young, vibrant person, like we should not be coming to the same site, getting the same experience. And I think our behaviors on site, even in absence of knowing who we are, should change based on our intent and how we show up on the site.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. As we were talking, I was thinking about Netflix as an example. I had the other day that 2 different users will have a completely different first image of the same show that is more representative of the kinds of things that they watch as a way of kind of seducing you to watch the same thing.
Yes. We had, I forget what his name was, but we had him come speak at our user conference. We're one of the pioneers of the Netflix sort of experimentation frameworks. And the soundbite is measure everything. In order to measure everything, you have to collect the data on everything. And once you're measuring everything, you can then run experiments and start to see what the outcomes are. You've got to measure behavioral data.
We're coming up to the end of the questions I wanted to ask, but I've been thinking whilst we've been talking about, tracking people's behavior and then giving them a more personalized experience, and thinking there's a fine line there to be crossed between being personalized and being creepy.
100%. I do believe that is true. You got to start with the basics of what is your relationship with your visitor. It's really important. It may be even higher. What does the law say that you should and should not do? We're fans of GDPR and in the States, CCPA and other things because we think it finally gives us a framework. Again, we work in a first party setting. So this is not about data brokering or any of this sort of thing. This is just like understanding your visitors when they come into your store. But you want to do that in a very private, friendly, appropriate way. And so we think a lot about that. We have a lot of tools and techniques to make sure that you're only gathering data that you need to deliver that better experience. But beyond that, you should give your visitors what they expect. And I think you can do that without being creepy. I really do. And it comes by knowing your customers and what is okay and what is not.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for joining me today. Before we head out, is there anywhere that audience members can go to follow you, see what you're up to, or connect with you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would point you to FullStory.com. We would love to have a conversation with you of any of the behavioral data topics that we covered today sound of interest. Blog.FullStory.com is a great source for a lot of thought leadership. I finished up a blog post this morning that I'm sure will get edited away. And then I'm out there on LinkedIn, so hit me up.
I'll make sure that all of those links are in the show notes for anyone who's listening. Thanks again, Scott. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
And we've reached the end of another episode, folks. If there's one thing that I'm taking away from my interview with Scott, it's that when used properly, behavioral data is enabling companies to better understand their users and deliver what they really need. By moving beyond standard analytics, tech teams are catching issues earlier, adapting experiences in real time, and able to create journeys that resonate more with their users. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Tech Beyond the Hype is a Tech Target original podcast.